Excusez-moi, pourquoi est-ce que vous manifestez ici?
Je manifeste pour que le Kagame qui occupe le Congo quitte le Congo. Il a déjà assez volé.
Ich demonstriere, damit Kagame aus dem Kongo verschwindet. Er hat Leute umgebracht. Es gibt schon 3 Millionen Tote im Kongo. Niemand spricht davon, weil alle bis hinauf zum belgischen Präsidenten Komplizen sind. Deshalb kämpfen wir dafür, dass Kagame den Kongo verlässt und dass sie aufhören, die Kongolesen umzubringen.
I have often described globalization as trying to build a house by taking the foundation stones to make the roof. And obviously that house must collapse. The movement that has resisted this has been based on principles of local control, democracy, sustainability, and justice. That movement has been a highly decentralized movement. It's existed across the world, but in Seattle, it also expressed itself in international form. And after Seattle, in Prague, in Washington, in Gothenburg, in Genoa. I believe that movement is now entering a new phase, both because maintaining a centralized resistance is not sustainable, but also because after September 11th, governments have equipped themselves with laws that they call anti-terrorist laws, but are anti-protest laws, anti-civil liberties laws, anti-democracy laws, through which they will try and control this movement. They are more afraid of this movement than a bin Laden, because a bin Laden can get one Trade Center TARS if he did, but these movements will bring change in every society.
Protesters failed in their principal goal, which was to form a UN barricade around the building here. They were going to try to bar the World Bank and IMF, International Monetary Fund officials from meeting here. They simply could not do that. They did not have the numbers. Still, they gave the Prague police a heck of a scare. Throughout the afternoon, there were pitched battles. A small left-wing band of hardcore demonstrators, anarchists, neo-communists, neo-Marxists, kept repeatedly outflanking the Prague police.
Fucking jail. Been in the custody of the Czech Republic for disturbing the peace for about 18 hours. We did nothing.
I mean, you know, firstly I want to say I don't think the World Bank's a monolith. I'm not going to pretend that 10,000 people employed by this institution are all evil, even though the net effect of the institution is truly evil. It literally has displaced tens of millions of people in its history, has destroyed the lives, if not killed millions of people during that time. But individuals in it may have compassion, may be convinced that what they're doing is right. what the ideological difference is between our views of the world is that they believe 10,000 people, mostly white men, in suits, flying desks in Washington, D.C., can determine what's good for the rest of the world. What we actually see is that the bank's spending is increasingly in the arena of private sector subsidy rather than any kind of excusable effort at poverty alleviation, even if it's misguided and incorrect. So in fact, the World Bank is increasing its direct effect, an attempt to enrich the already powerful and rich, and lessening its efforts, as poor and misguided as they were, to alleviate the poverty of the many.
In the World Bank, you have $1, you have one vote. You know, and we should have a system where you get more democratically, because then who decides in the World Bank? United States, Japan, some countries in Europe, period. What about the rest of the world, which is the immense majority? They have nothing to say.
We had lots of problems. Well, we spent a long time at the border. We stood at the border for a really long time in the rain. It was lovely. Oh, why? Because they taped off this little corner of the land and said it was the Czech Republic.
I see.
And they wouldn't let us step out of it or get any food or water or shelter, and they were doing a bunch of stupid bureaucratic stuff because they don't like us because they're scared.
I see.
Because we think we're going to get back on our bikes like we've been for a really long time and go to Prague. Woo!
And just to go back a little bit further to a sort of philosophical point, and that is around the whole notion of development and what development banks and institutions are for. And that is that it is a false notion, and it was set up only 50 years ago, in 1945, when Harry Truman gave his inaugural speech. He was shopping around for a foreign policy after kicking their ass in the Second World War, and he coined this phrase where he said, we have to help the underdeveloped. In so saying, he cast at that time 2.5 billion people as somehow less than citizenry of the United States. And what he was saying was, we want to get them up to our standard of living. And it's all measured in terms of how much you consume and how far you drive in a car and what your cash income is. And those drive in a car and what your cash income is. And those standards have been the yardsticks by which we measure development, and which the success of foreign policy and aid institutions and the World Bank and other things is measured. It's ridiculous to pretend we can generalize through 6 billion people the standards of living that a few people enjoy in the US and Europe and Japan and Australia. If we were to try to do that just in terms of consumption of raw materials, you'd need 6 planets as mines and waste dumps just to go through. The whole exercise is based on a completely false assumption that we can do development, that we would want to do development, and these institutions, we would want to do development. And these institutions are pursuing that goal willy-nilly, taking your money and mine as taxpayers in order to go on with this lie and destroy people's lives in the course of their work.
Also das hier ist das Büro von der Border Solidarity Group und wir versuchen Leute zu unterstützen, die an der Grenze Schwierigkeiten haben, die Leute trotzdem am besten, am leichtesten oder sonst wie halt hier ins schöne Prag kommen können, um ihr Recht auf Demonstrationsfreiheit wahrzunehmen.
I think I do know, I'm entirely sure that it's not, but I do know some people. Okay. I think it's up near Letna where the demonstration's going to start this afternoon.
Gut, also gerade aktuell ist ein Zug mit ungefähr 800 bis 900 Leuten, die aus Italien kommen.
e siamo fermi da questa mattina alle 4 dopo che una serie di compagni e compagne sono stati presi e riportati oltre il confine, cioè in Austria, 17 precisamente, e altri 4 sono qui all'interno del treno, tra cui io, e non ci viene impedito di continuare il nostro percorso verso Praga. Riteniamo che la motivazione sia molto semplice: tutte le persone a cui viene detta questa cosa sono quelle che hanno partecipato alle riunioni preliminari ad agosto in organizzazione di questi giorni contro la Banca Mondiale e il Fondo Monetario Internazionale.
We are going to the Ministry of Interior to make like a little bit silent protest against that our friends are stopped on the border and they are not allowed to cross and go in to support our protest.
We made this demonstration because we are very angry, because the Czech state is blocking more than 1,000 people at the border with Austria for political reasons, because they don't want the people to come here in Prague. They are afraid of the people coming here to protest.
Noi pensiamo comunque questa notte di rimanere qua con i funzionari dell'ambasciata, con Raul Mantovani, con alcuni compagni, e vedere se la situazione si sblocca per domani mattina. Non ci crediamo molto.
Is the initiative against economic globalization, which is the umbrella group of many different organizations that are formed against the IMF and World Bank meeting. It's been very sporadic. I mean, first of all, it was a very, very small amount of people, and then it's really grown over the last couple of months. The people have come to Prague to take part in helping and organizing and coordinating. And from where the people are coming? All over the world.
I think it's the best way to. I think it's the best way to sort of organise, because you don't take away from the autonomy. You don't make people fit into your vision or perspective of the world. You join up, you network in terms of on points of commonality, and that's anti-neoliberalism, anti-colonisation, those sorts of things, and that's the reason why everybody's here.
The Czech people also have no such a developed strategy, because this is one of the first big meetings of the new generation. Our Czech people will become more. Yeah. So here is mainly international people.
Ja, es ist die Chance einer Vernetzung von radikalem Widerstand. In den letzten Jahren gab es diese Vernetzung schon weltweit, aber in der Öffentlichkeit dominiert ja doch sehr so die Zivilgesellschaft in Form von Nichtregierungsorganisationen. Und Intec ist schon eine sehr radikale Bewegung, was die Position angeht, weil es eben sagt, keine Reformierung, sondern Abschaffung von IWF und Weltbank.
It is spontaneously developing. It's not any one organization developing it. It's spontaneously developing. It is similar to the development of the youth revolt in the 60s and 70s. It's similar.
Ultimately, they're going to be taking down these buildings and developing the land, but right now it's not used and it's available, and they're letting us use it for 2 weeks. So what we're going to have going on here is we have one large building where we're going to have trainings and workshops, a big welcome center, housing information for people, what else? Accommodations information, volunteer coordination, all different sorts of things. We have another building that's going to be an art space.
This is our friends. First, this guy in yellow is from Poland, and he's an anarchist, like us. This guy in the middle is from USA, and he's from IMPEC. And this guy by the right, he's from Poland also, but he's from the ecological organization like First Earth, something like that.
Do you know how long they are planning to stay there?
First they want to stay a couple days by
Really?
the hammock.
Really?
Yes, but now the police, they talk with police, and the police give them the permission to take this banner, but they must go out.
This is the way the Czech police treat peaceful demonstrators.
You got anything to say, man? Are you okay? Are you all right?
Not really.
Jako já nevím, jestli jste velitel zásahový, zavřeli jste člověka, který vůbec neví za co.
A neprokázal.
Já jsem občanská právní hlídka. Já jsem byla celou dobu od 20 metrů od toho člověka, jo, takže laskavě, abych jako...
Deine Nummer, Identifikation.
Hej!
Your understanding is they've been arrested?
We don't know for sure, but they certainly were treated like they were. Obviously, we have no idea about the way that they were dragged away.
And how would you describe the way the police reacted? Was it brutal or overreacting?
Extremely overreacting. They had just come down from climbing massive heights, should have tumbled to the ground and dragged away in the way that they were. Completely unjust.
But your action tomorrow will go as planned. You still plan to walk in?
This is why we're doing what we're doing tomorrow, because of treatment like this, because we're not allowed to speak our minds around the world, because people around the world are denied democracy, denied freedom, are in poverty, their health care, they have no health care. That's why we're speaking here. So of course we'll continue. Nothing will stop us.
The World Bank financed the Chitzoy Dam in Guatemala, where I bought this thing as a matter of fact. 400 people were killed in Guatemala for that dam to be built. That was 1982. And the World Bank was giving money to the government for the dam. The World Bank said, well, I was not, promoting the killing. They were financing the government who was doing it. The World Bank shares the responsibility for a lot of massacres around the world. Mining is one example, but many others also. Big projects. Because why? They see just the economic benefit. You remember in the World Bank, there was one of the guys, the chief economist, he said once, well, we should send all the pollution to the third world because they are under-polluted. It makes economic sense. Because if you put pollution in the United States, you have to clean things, and that requires a lot of money. But if you send it to Nigeria, it does not. So they want to send pollution to the south. This is the problem, that the World Bank sees everything in terms of economic profits, and not even economic profits for the world, but economic profits for big corporations. And those are public funds. They should not be used for that. And what about human concerns? What about environmental concerns? They don't matter.
Over this last 6 years, this movement has grown, has become much more receptive to the demands of those from the other side of the movement, especially in Latin America and Africa. And the people in Latin America and Africa are basically saying, they're killing us. There's nothing more or less that we can say. I think it's got to stop.
Last year, in June 18th, we coordinated people filming at an anti-capitalist protest in London. And it was a global protest. But what we did in London was we used the internet as a tool for getting images out, and text and photographs out. And from that, it became a sort of a template for how people around the world could coordinate stories and coordinate video crews to tell their own story from an independent point of view. And from that grew something called an independent media center. which is basically based around the internet, and an Indomedia.org, which was designed between Australia and America, between different activists, media activists. And the plan was to have one website where anybody can upload their own images, their own text, their own photographs, to say, this is the story we saw, bypassing the corporate media.
Tonight we're broadcasting from Prague, in former Czechoslovakia, where Communist Prime Minister Miloš Zeman has laid out his new red carpet for the International Monetary Fund's annual meeting.
And since then it's grown, and now every single event that's more or less every big event that's happened over the last few years, or the last year, from Australia to India to Prague, Washington, Seattle, they've all got their own independent media websites that they upload their own stories, and that's just a growing network now. And now media activists have a place to network right across the world now.
We arrived at the Independent Media Centre on Monday to find police checking passports.
Why do you want to see a passport? You don't know why you want to see a passport?
You must have a reason. You cannot just stop someone.
From our understanding, it was illegal under Czech law for them just to randomly stop people and ask to see their passports. They had to have a reason.
Okay, let's do the passport. You have a reason? Why are you asking me for my passport? Why are you asking me? What is the reason? What is the justification?
And it got to the stage where we thought it was probably a good idea to hand over our passports, even though we considered we were in the right.
You can see it. Why do you want to hold it? You can see it. See, it's me. Hello.
Do you speak English?
No.
You speak English? Are you shouting at me? Is it necessary to shout at me? Do you think I'm deaf, mate?
As was the case on many other occasions, what our rights were on paper was a completely different story to what was happening on the street.
Western countries are more connected because of the internet and the media. In Czech, everything is new. All these things are new. People are learning how to use the internet, and they learn. So for me, it was very interesting. For few people I know, it was interesting.
The main problem we have, I think, is how internet dependent we are, and how, for example, we can't really be global if we can't communicate with a large proportion of people from the global south because they haven't got the internet connections.
Meine Utopie wäre, dass es noch mehr zusammengeht mit Norden und Süden. Also auch hier in Prag finde ich es wieder, das liegt ganz stark auch an den Medien, aber alle gucken halt auf Prag und wie viele Schaufensterscheiben sind kaputt gegangen. Und währenddessen laufen gerade in Bolivien seit Tagen massive Demonstrationen. Es sind, ich glaube, 7 Tote inzwischen. Und das geht, soweit ich das jetzt beobachten kann, noch relativ unter in den Medien. Und ich glaube, dass es unsere Aufgabe ist, noch mehr die Bewegungen des Südens in den Vordergrund zu stellen, wenn wir es ausnutzen können, dass wir im Norden protestieren.
Banco Mundial en nuestros países.
We have struggles every day against the World Bank and the IMF in our countries.
Nosotros no podamos ni dormir tranquilos.
We cannot even sleep in peace.
No es fácil para nosotros pensar que el día siguiente nuestros hijos no puedan ir con una taza de café a la escuela.
It's not easy for us to sleep knowing that the next day our children will not be able even to have a cup of coffee before going to school.
Because Seattle became so important and now Washington, the discussion of the strategies and tactics have become more intense, but this is not new.
We were going for a picnic. We were just walking, and it was like a checkpoint, and they were checking everybody's passports who happened to walk by these board cops. And so they pulled out they're like, passports, and we gave them our passports. They're looking, and that wasn't good enough for them. So they're like, bag.
Bag. Take your bag off. Gesture. Arr, arr, arr. Take their bag off. Open them up. Everything out. They found what? We were caught with walking with bandanas. That was our charge.
Well, you had goggles. I had a bandana. So basically, it was possession of a bandana.
See, the nation states now are in the position of the police officers, and so they're now also studying their role. It's going onto the streets of Europe and the U.S. It was on the streets of the rest of the planet long before. Lagos was shut down many days, right? All throughout the 1980s and 90s. It's not a new development, right? So they're now beginning to see their cities seeing the consequences of this type of story.
The growing anti-capitalist movement aims to stop the destruction of millions of lives and the ruin of hundreds of millions more across the planet. But capitalism is not simply a set of institutions such as the IMF, World Bank, the WTO or NATO, but a system that operates according to the logic of blind competition for profit. These profits don't appear by magic. Despite dot-com economy hype and the fantasy world offered to us by corporate culture, the profits of global capitalism still depend on the exploitation every day of millions of ordinary workers. The last 30 years have seen the third world slide deeper and deeper into chronic debt and poverty, whilst welfare and education systems have been dismantled in the advanced capitalist states of the north. During this period, the rich have continued to get richer and the poor poorer. Capitalists have proved again and again that they will go to any length to protect their wealth. This system under which we exist breeds war, poverty and environmental destruction. It cannot be reformed. It must be overthrown. If you want to fight a powerful enemy, you need a powerful weapon, and that is exactly what we have. The workings of capitalism itself creates for us just such a weapon. Capitalism depends on the millions of people all over the world like us, who are caught up in the system, working in factories, offices, plantations and shops to produce their profit. We, these very workers, can bring the system to a halt. Mass struggles throughout history have shown that workers collectively can successfully fight back against the system. Enormous strikes in 1995 forced the French government to drop its neoliberal program of cutbacks. In the US, American workers have started to hit back against the billionaires' orgy of the past 20 years. From Zimbabwe to Bolivia, the third world has been swept by demonstrations and general strikes against IMF-imposed structural adjustment policies. On November the 30th, 1999, demonstrations in Seattle were to show how the combination of both the rank-and-file workers and direct action activists could succeed in shutting down the WTO. Similar groups came together in Prague: socialists, trade unionists, religious groups, NGOs, anarchists and direct action activists to demonstrate against the meetings of the IMF and World Bank. From Seattle and Washington to Melbourne and Prague, the spirit of global resistance is growing. But it is not enough to meet as anti-capitalists. We have to combine our struggles against the system with the struggles of workers in every workplace, in every country. Direct action in the streets must be connected to direct action in the workplace. We as workers have the potential to destroy the system and build a better world.
Tomorrow is a big day. We are ready. I explain you, we all meet here in Namestimiro. After long meetings at the Convergence Center, we decided to divide all the affinity groups in three big lines: the yellow line, the blue line, and the pink line. So they will be divided. We start all from the Namestimiro. The yellow line is going to go down to the bridge. Here is the Congress Center. They go down to the bridge. Instead, the pinks, they will try to go down and reach the place from south, from here, and the blue will come this way. So we will be all around the Congress Center, try to stop the IMF meetings.
una nuova forma di legalità dal basso. È giusto lottare e combattere contro le multinazionali.
Noi siamo venuti qua dall'Italia in treno occupato per manifestare contro l'incontro, il vertice di Banca Mondiale e Fondo Internazionale Monetario. Ci sembra veramente intollerabile che pochi decidano per le sorti di tutti, però noi mettiamo in atto la disobbedienza civile di sicuro. Cioè noi mettiamo le persone prima dei profitti, per questo siamo qui oggi.
Sto dormendo!
Come stai dormendo?
Non vedi, mi sono portato anche così. Che sia autorizzato o no, noi oggi partiremo verso il congresso, il vertice dei padroni del mondo.
We are here also in the name of all those that are forced to live in clandestinity, the refugees, the displaced, the so-called illegal aliens. All the people that have refused the right to freely move around the world. We are for a world with no borders. We do not want their new world order.
Perché il limone?
Contro i lacrimogeni.
Contro i lacrimogeni, ah, bene.
Over the top like. Hello?
Demonstration. Excuse me? Talk. We are demonstrating. We are demonstrating and we want to discuss with you. We don't want any violence. We don't have any violence. We want a peaceful demonstration.
Yeah, Chief.
Please talk to us. We want to talk and discuss with you. We have not come here to do any violence. Despite what the press has said, we have come here to join with Prague people to demonstrate against the unrightful politics, the unrightful deeds of the IMF. We don't want any violence.
Peaceful, peaceful. No problem.
The language of money is the language which the World Bank and the IMF and the banks understand. So talking about money, the debt of the North to the South, the ecological debt, is much larger than the external money debt of the South towards the North. And this means that it's not the South which ought to pay to the North, but the North which ought to pay to the South on account of the ecological debt. And from two sources. One, the robbery, the German geographers used to call Raubwirtschaft, robbery of raw materials without paying anything for local externalities, local negative effects. For instance, copper mining or oil mining, oil production without compensation for local damage. And on the other hand, the carbon debt. We, the rich people in the world, we are occupying environmental space which does not belong to us. We have given to us de facto property rights on the carbon sinks without paying anything. So these are the sources of the ecological debt.
I have the utmost faith